Fuck if I knew how it happened. One moment, I was just walking into his house, expecting a normal evening. A few drinks, a little music, maybe some conversation to kill the time. Nothing special. But a few hours later, I was lying in her bed, my body trembling from exhaustion, her lips still damp against my skin, and the only thought running through my head was, how the hell did I end up here? I wasn't planning it. God knows I wasn't. But when she looked at me with those eyes, like she could read every filthy thought in my head, resisting her was impossible. And if you stay with me until the end, maybe you'll understand why I can't forget that night. Her name was Claire. At least, that's what I'll call her. She wasn't supposed to be there that night. I came to meet an old friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. We used to hit the gym together, talk about work, women, life. And now, he had invited me over for drinks. I walked in expecting him alone. Instead, she opened the door. Blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, loose sweater hanging off her shoulder, and those gray eyes that froze me mid-step. "You must be Daniel," she said with a small smile. "He's in the back, finishing a call." "Come in," her voice. Calm, low, smooth. The kind of voice that makes you lean in closer without realizing. I followed her into the living room. She poured me a drink, neat whiskey, like she already knew that's what I'd want. She didn't ask me anything at first, just sat down across from me, crossed her legs slowly, and tilted her head like she was studying me. "You don't look like the kind of man who says yes to invitations easily," she said finally. I raised a brow. "What makes you think that?" She smirked. "The way you hesitate before answering, like you're always measuring the risk." And fuck me, she was right. My friend finally came out, all smiles, clapped me on the shoulder, poured himself a drink. But my eyes kept drifting back to her, not just because she was beautiful, though she was, but because of the way she carried herself. Relaxed, confident, like she already knew what was going to happen and was just waiting for me to realize it too. Hours passed. We drank, talked, laughed. At some point, my friend stepped out to take another call. That's when it shifted. She leaned closer across the table. "He tells me you're single." I nodded. "And he tells me you're not." Her smile widened, slow, deliberate. "Does that bother you?" It should have. It really should have. But the way she asked it, eyes locked on mine, voice just a whisper above the music, it felt like the only right answer was silence. And in that silence, she reached out, just her fingers brushing the back of my hand, gentle, barely there, but enough to send a current straight through my chest. I didn't move, didn't speak, just watched as she slowly drew her hand back, her lips curving like she had confirmed something she already suspected. Later, when my friend disappeared upstairs to grab something, she stood, walked past me toward the kitchen, and I swear she slowed her steps on purpose, letting the sweater slip a little lower down her shoulder, the curve of her neck exposed in the dim light. I should have stayed seated. I didn't. I followed her. She was at the counter, pouring herself water. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "You've been staring at me all night." I exhaled. "You've been staring back." Finally, she turned. Close. Too close. I could smell her perfume, warm vanilla, sharp citrus. Her eyes searched mine, steady, unafraid. "What happens if I kiss you?" For a moment, the world just stopped. The music, the hum of the fridge, the faint sound of footsteps upstairs, all of it vanished. There was only her, inches away, waiting. I didn't answer with words. I closed the distance. Her lips were softer than I imagined, warm, demanding, the kind of kiss that makes you forget where you are. She pressed against me, her hand sliding into my hair, pulling me deeper, and I let go, of hesitation, of reason, of every excuse I could have made. By the time we broke apart, my chest was heaving. She looked up at me with a fire that hadn't been there before. "We shouldn't," she whispered. "I know," I said. And then I kissed her again. It wasn't careful anymore. It wasn't testing boundaries. It was hunger, pure, unfiltered hunger. She pressed me back against the counter, her body flush against mine, and I felt the tension snap like a rope pulled too tight for too long. I don't remember moving to the bedroom. One moment we were in the kitchen, the next my back hit the doorframe and she was tugging me inside. Clothes scattered. The sweater dropped to the floor, her laughter breathless in my ear, my hands everywhere at once. And when she pulled me down onto the bed, whispering my name like she had been waiting all night just to say it, I knew there was no turning back. That was only the beginning. The first kiss, the first touch, the first time her voice broke into a moan that made my entire body burn. But the night wasn't over, not even close. By the time we tumbled onto the bed, the world outside that room ceased to exist. The dim light from the street lamp outside the window cast soft shadows across her skin, illuminating curves and contours I hadn't even dared imagine moments earlier. Her lips, wet from our kisses, pressed against my neck, sending shivers down my spine. "Daniel," she breathed, her voice trembling with a mixture of excitement and longing. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears, fast, heavy, insistent. Every nerve in my body was on fire. I leaned over her, taking in the curve of her shoulders, the softness of her hair. I ran my hands down her side slowly, deliberately, memorizing every inch. She pressed her body closer, her lips never leaving mine for more than a heartbeat. I could feel the heat radiating from her. Every brush of skin, every sigh, every whisper pulled me deeper, and I had no intention of resisting. We moved together like a tide, unstoppable, our rhythm building with every second. Her hands tangled in my hair, my fingers tracing the line of her back, the small of her waist. The tension between us was electric. Every touch sent sparks through my body. She whispered in my ear, low, teasing, almost taunting, "I've wanted this all day." I pressed my forehead to hers, unable to stop a laugh, a moan, a mix of disbelief and exhilaration. Me too, I admitted, though it barely covered the truth. I had been thinking about her, fantasizing about her since the moment I saw her smile. We moved again, closer, slower this time, as if savoring every second, every sensation. My hands were everywhere, on her back, her hips, her thighs, exploring, memorizing, marking territory in a way that felt thrillingly possessive but not cruel. Her skin tasted of sweetness and warmth, her scent wrapped around me, intoxicating. I lost track of time, lost track of reason. Hours felt like minutes. Every sigh, every brush of fingers, every quiet laugh fueled the fire. We didn't speak much. Words were unnecessary. Our bodies communicated, spoke in a language older than words. Every time we paused to catch a breath, she would look up at me, eyes bright and daring, and the look alone would make me shiver again. "I can't stop thinking about this," she whispered once, trembling. I smiled, knowing I felt the same way. The intensity built, not in a frantic rush, but in waves, slow, relentless, pulling us closer to that edge, teasing and denying, stretching each moment until it was almost unbearable. It wasn't just one moment. It was a series of peaks, each one more intense than the last. Our movements synchronized perfectly, instinctively, as though we had done this before, even though it was the first time. Every time I thought I couldn't go any further, she would pull me closer, whisper something that made me forget fatigue and hunger alike. Time became meaningless. The only reality was the warmth, the pressure, the pull of skin on skin, breath on breath, hearts racing together. And in between, there were tiny pauses, moments where we held each other, spent seconds just tracing the outline of faces and hands, our foreheads pressed together, catching our breath before the next wave took us again. Eventually, the intensity faded into a softer, slower rhythm. My chest heaving, arms around her, feeling her heartbeat match mine. We lay tangled together, skin against skin, the world outside forgotten entirely. I traced patterns on her back, marveling at how close she felt, how real it was. She rested her head on my shoulder, sighing softly, a contented sound that echoed in the quiet room. "I don't want this night to end," she whispered. I kissed her hair, letting my lips linger, tasting the sweetness, warmth, and the faint scent of vanilla that clung to her skin. "Neither do I admitted. For a long time, we lay there, talking in whispers, teasing each other, laughing quietly. Every once in a while, a touch, a shiver, a soft kiss reminded us both that the fire hadn't fully died out. It was just smoldering, ready to flare again. Hours later, when the first hints of sunlight filtered through the blinds, we were still tangled together, bodies worn out, but hearts racing, minds swirling with the intensity of the night. I knew this would haunt me. I knew I would replay these moments, over and over, in memory and in desire. She looked up at me, eyes still heavy-lidded but sparkling. "Do you want to do this again?" I smiled, pressing my forehead to hers. "More than anything," I admitted. And that was the truth. That night wasn't just an experience. It was a taste of something addictive, something I had been craving without even realizing it. And I knew, without a doubt, that it wouldn't be the last time. The morning after, I woke to a quiet room and the faint glow of sunlight spilling through the blinds. My body ached in ways that were both exhausting and exhilarating. Every muscle remembered the night before, the heat, the intensity, the rhythm we had moved together. But it wasn't just my body that remembered. My mind replayed her eyes, her voice, the way her hair fell across her face as she whispered my name. I lay there for a moment, just breathing, feeling the emptiness of the bed without her, and realized how strange it was. One night, a few hours of closeness, and suddenly everything else felt dull, lifeless. Work, friends, even the routine of my apartment, none of it mattered. I reached for my phone, almost expecting a message from her. Nothing. And yet, that absence only made me crave her more. The tension didn't fade. It lingered, a smoldering heat that refused to die down. I couldn't stop thinking about the way she had pressed against me, how her fingers had traced patterns across my back and chest. Every touch, every sigh, every whisper was etched into my memory. I found myself replaying moments, imagining subtle variations, thinking about how I might touch her next, how she might respond. The funny thing is, I had never been one to dwell on desire. I could admire someone, maybe flirt, But the intensity of what I felt now was new territory. It was addictive, and I wanted more. By mid-morning, I couldn't concentrate on anything. The meeting I had planned with a client became a blur of numbers and words that didn't make sense. My mind kept drifting back to her. The curve of her shoulder, the warmth of her breath on my neck, the slow, teasing rhythm of the night before. Later that afternoon, I ran into her at the small coffee shop near my apartment. I almost froze when I saw her. The same hair pulled back messily, a casual sweater, the same eyes that had captivated me just hours before. My heart skipped, my palms dampened, and I felt a surge of anticipation. She smiled, seeing me. "Morning," she said, tilting her head in that same way, like she already knew exactly what I was thinking. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." "Me neither," she replied softly, but there was a glint in her eye that told me she was enjoying every second of the surprise. We talked casually. Coffee, work, mutual friends. But beneath every word, every laugh, was that invisible thread, the tension that had started the night before and refused to fade. I could feel it building again, quiet and insistent. Later that evening, I found myself wandering near her street, almost unconsciously. I wasn't sure if I was following her or if fate had simply guided me to the same place. And then I saw her on her balcony, leaning against the railing, staring at the city lights. "Daniel," she called softly when she saw me. "Come up." I climbed the stairs, each step a mix of excitement and dread. As I reached the door, she opened it before I could knock, smiling, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the city outside. Without a word, she led me inside, and we sat close on her couch, almost touching, but not quite. The tension was unbearable, electric. Every glance, every casual brush of our arms sparked memory and desire. "You've been thinking about last night," she said quietly, almost a statement rather than a question. I swallowed hard. "Guilty," I admitted, my voice low. Her lips curved in that teasing half-smile. "Good. I like that." She leaned back, letting the space between us shrink ever so slightly. Every inch, every movement was calculated, subtle, yet it set my nerves alight. I wanted to reach for her, but I held back, letting the anticipation build. She whispered, almost conspiratorially, "You know, I don't think last night is the end. I think we both know it's just the beginning." And in that moment, I realized she was right. That night had opened something in both of us, a door we couldn't close. The thought alone made my pulse race. We spent the evening close, talking, laughing, teasing, never crossing the line too soon. But the tension remained. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word was a reminder of what had happened and what was inevitable. By the time I left her apartment, my mind was spinning. Desire, curiosity, excitement, all mixed into a potent cocktail that refused to fade. I knew I would replay every detail of the night before over and over, and I knew I would think of her constantly until the next time we were together. And I also knew that next time would be even more intense. A few days later, I found myself knocking at her door again. The memory of the last night lingered, heavy and intoxicating. Each step toward her apartment felt like I was walking through fog, hazy, disoriented, yet entirely alive with anticipation. She opened the door before I could ring, wearing a loose blouse that did nothing to hide the curve of her shoulders. Her smile was slow, knowing, deliberate. "Daniel," she said, tilting her head slightly. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "I couldn't stay away," I admitted. Even saying it aloud made my pulse quicken. She laughed softly, a low melodious sound that seemed to vibrate right through me. "Good. Come in." We sat close on the couch, just inches apart, the tension almost tangible. She reached out, letting her fingers brush mine lightly, testing, teasing. It was subtle, almost casual, but I could feel the electricity surge the moment our skin met. "I've thought about that night," I confessed, my voice low, "more than I probably should." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "I have too." Every second her hand moved up, resting lightly on my chest, feeling the rapid beat of my heart beneath. The warmth, the pressure, the anticipation, it was all consuming. And yet, there was something different this time. We weren't rushing. The night stretched ahead of us, full of possibilities. Every touch, every look, every whispered word was amplified because we both knew what was coming, but we could savor it, tease it, let it build. She leaned closer, her lips grazing my ear. "I want to feel it. Again. All of it." And that was all the permission I needed. I pressed forward, capturing her lips in a kiss that was slow at first, exploring, savoring, tasting. She responded immediately, hands sliding up my arms, tangling in my hair, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. We moved together like a dance, instinctive and rhythmic. Her body pressed to mine, every sigh and movement guiding the flow, every touch a conversation in its own right. The hours melted away as we explored, repeated, discovered, lost ourselves in each other. This time there was no hesitation, no testing boundaries. We had already crossed them once. Now it was about indulgence, exploration, and surrendering completely to the night. It wasn't just one climax this time. It was a series, a symphony of sensation that left us both breathless and exhilarated. Every time I thought I had reached the limit, she would tease, whisper, or move in a way that sent me spiraling again. Her laughter, her whispers, the gentle grinding of her body against mine, it was intoxicating, addictive. I felt alive in a way I hadn't before, every nerve ending ablaze, every sense heightened. And in between the peaks, we would pause just enough to catch our breath, to touch, to kiss softly, to remind each other that we were still here, still present, still hungry for more. Eventually, the intensity faded into warmth. We lay tangled together on the bed, our bodies sticky and exhausted, but the fire hadn't fully died. It simmered, quiet, persistent, promising more. Her head rested against my chest, my arms around her, and we stayed like that for hours, talking in whispers, laughing softly, and sometimes just breathing together. There was a bond forming deeper than the night before. Desire was still the fuel, but there was something else now, a connection, a sense of intimacy that went beyond physical pleasure. She tilted her head up at me. Us, it's different than I expected," she said softly. I kissed her forehead. "Yeah, I feel it too. And we both knew this wasn't just a one-night thing. This was the beginning of something that would pull us back together again and again, each encounter more intense, more intoxicating than the last. When I finally left her apartment, the city felt different. Everything felt sharper, more vivid, more alive. Every glance at a passerby, every passing car, every sound reminded me of her, the warmth of her body, the sweetness of her lips, the teasing glint in her eyes. And I knew it wouldn't be long before we were together again. The fire had been lit, and there was no way to put it out. A week passed, but the memory of her never faded. Every glance at my phone, every idle thought, every quiet moment was haunted by the taste of her lips, the curve of her body, the sound of her soft laughter echoing in my mind. I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I needed to see her again. When I arrived at her apartment that evening, my pulse was already racing. She opened the door before I could knock, smiling like she had been expecting me all along. "You're late," she teased, tilting her head and letting her hair fall over one shoulder. "Traffic," I muttered, though we both knew the truth. I had been waiting for this night as much as she had. No words were needed. As soon as I stepped inside, the air between us crackled. Every brush of her hand against mine, every glance, every subtle shift of her body drew me closer. I felt an ache, a hunger, a need that had been building for days, and now it demanded release. She led me to the bedroom, slowly, deliberately. Her eyes never left mine. Each step was a tease, each movement a promise. I followed, heart pounding, hands ready to explore every inch of her. The moment the door closed behind us, she pressed me against it. Her lips captured mine, urgent, demanding, and I responded immediately. We kissed with an intensity that erased the last week of waiting, the tension, the anticipation. Everything melted away until there was only this. Her, me, the fire between us. We moved together like we had rehearsed this dance in our minds 1,000 times. Her fingers traced lines on my chest. My hands memorized the curves of her back and sides. Every touch a conversation, every sigh a confession. This night was different from the last. There was no hesitation, no testing boundaries, only surrender. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered word heightened the intensity. I could feel the heat of her body through every layer of contact, and it made me ache for more. Each time I thought I had reached the limit, she would whisper something in my ear, a soft command, a gentle tease, and the wave of desire would crash again. It wasn't just one climax. It was a series, relentless and intoxicating. Her laughter, her moans, the feel of her body pressed against mine, it all combined into an experience I would never forget. Each peak left us trembling, gasping, and yet craving more. Between the waves, we held each other close, our foreheads pressed together, catching our breath, sharing soft whispers and tender touches. It was a rhythm of fire and calm, passion and intimacy, and it left me exhausted, but completely alive. Hours later, when the intensity faded into warmth and softness, we lay tangled together, our bodies entwined, hearts racing in perfect unison. I traced patterns on her back, feeling the heat of her skin, the gentle rise and fall of her chest. This is insane," she whispered, a soft laugh escaping her lips. "I didn't expect any of this." I kissed her hair, letting my lips linger. "Neither did I admitted, "but I'm glad it happened." And I meant it. This night, these nights, had changed something in both of us. Desire had become more than just a physical hunger. It had become an unspoken connection, a bond forged in intimacy and fire. As dawn approached, I finally stood, reluctantly leaving her side. She followed me to the door, her hand lingering on mine, eyes full of promise. "Same time next week?" she asked, voice low, teasing. I smiled, heart still pounding. "Absolutely." And as I walked away, I knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The fire had been lit, and there was no way to extinguish it. Every thought of her would haunt me, excite me, pull me back until the next encounter. The night had ended, but the story, our story, was far from over. Days passed, but her presence never left me. Every glance at my phone, every idle moment at work, every mundane chore reminded me of her. The warmth of her skin, the taste of her lips, the subtle laughter that echoed in my mind. Even ordinary things became charged with memory. The way sunlight hit my kitchen counter, the scent of coffee in the morning, the quiet hum of the city outside my window. I found myself walking past her street more often than I realized, my heart quickening at every chance she might appear, and when she did, even by accident, it felt like the world paused. Every smile, every casual brush of her hand, every glance in my direction reignited the fire that had been burning since the first night. I hadn't expected any of this. One evening, with a friend, had spiraled into something I didn't even know I wanted, yet now couldn't live without. Desire had become obsession, but in the most exhilarating, intoxicating way possible. It wasn't just about sex. It was the connection, the intimacy, the way we moved together, understood each other without words. I thought back to the first time we kissed, the first night tangled together in passion and heat, and realized how much had changed since then. I wasn't just physically drawn to her. I was emotionally tethered, irrevocably, undeniably. Even in her absence, the longing didn't fade. I replayed our nights in my mind repeatedly, the feel of her hands on me, the warmth of her body pressed against mine, the intensity of every whispered word. I knew that no matter what, we would meet again. And when we did, it would be even more powerful, even more consuming. Every thought of her was like a spark against dry kindling, igniting desire and anticipation. I didn't just want her, I needed her, and I was certain she felt the same way. One evening, as I sat alone with the memory of her still clinging to me, my phone buzzed. A message from her. I can't stop thinking about last night. You know what that means. See you soon? I smiled, my pulse quickening, and typed back, absolutely. Can't wait. And with that, I knew the story wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Desire, connection, intimacy. It would continue to pull us together night after night, in ways neither of us could have anticipated. The fire had been lit, and there was no extinguishing it. And I wouldn't have wanted to